When I was 14 years old, I was afraid of girls, I was afraid of heights, and most of all, I was afraid of failure. But I'd found the perfect solution to the failure problem because I realized early on that by not really trying anything, I eliminated the risk of failure. So my teachers and my parents set high expectations for me. They expected me to get A's in all my classes, so I got 91s across the board. Um, but at the same time, I did idolize people in my life who pushed the limits a little bit and did things like my grandfather, who was forced into serving in World War II and traveled the world and did all these great things that maybe he didn't intend to do, but he ended up getting to ride a camel in front of the pyramids. Um, and my uncle, who taught English in Japan. For 2 years, he lived in Kobe, where one of the things he did was sleep through the Kobe earthquake in his Kobe apartment. But he ended up marrying my Aunt Satomi, um, who's Japanese and who had been a part of my life for my whole life. Um, so my big break came when I was 14 years old, and my uncle asked me if I wanted to go to Japan with him. He was visiting Aunt Satomi's family. So we flew through Seattle. We landed in the floating airport in Osaka, Japan. We got on a bullet train and we rode partway across the country, fell asleep on the bullet train. It was pretty sweet. We got directions from the only English speakers that we could find at a local train station, and they turned out to be Mormon missionaries from Schenectady, New York. My uncle pressured me to be less afraid of girls and kept telling me that different people were looking at me and I was scared. And so it was great. So the first week that I was there, I stayed with Uncle John's family, or Aunt Satomi's family. We traveled all over. We saw the sights in Kyoto. We visited the Atomic Bomb Museum in Hiroshima. We saw old imperial palaces and buildings that were 1,000 years old. And I'd never seen anything like that before. Now, the second week, I signed up. There was a Japanese family that had signed up to host an English speaker so that their daughters could learn English. As a 14-year-old who was afraid of girls, I met one of the daughters, and there were just stars in my eyes immediately. Her name was Kaori. I don't know how much I actually said to her, if I just spent my time being afraid of her most of the time. But we did talk a lot, and she's great. Now, so during this trip, we went to shopping malls. We took selfies in Japanese selfie booths where you got emoji stickers, all over before we had emojis here. It was wonderful. I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never been out of the country. Neither had either my parents. I'd never had the courage to spend time with a girl. So this was great. So on the last day that I was with the Onos, they threw a barbecue in my honor. And I remember that Kaori asked me, she said, I'd really like you to say something to my father. And I said, okay. and so we, over and over, she had me rehearse saying the sentence. And I stumbled at first, but then I got a little bit better and a little bit better. And eventually I went over to him, to Mr. Ono, and I composed myself, and I said the sentence that I'd rehearsed. And he, who didn't really speak English, is just doubled over laughing. And I turn around and Kaori's doubled over laughing. And I later found out that she'd taught me to say that I have 3 testicles to her father. So after the barbecue, Mr. Ono asked me if I would like to go bungee jumping. Now, I was afraid of heights. There was nothing in the world that I wanted to do less than bungee jump. But I remembered that I had a crush on his daughter. So what I said was, I would love to go bungee jumping, and I'm not afraid of heights. And in fact, I really like that sort of thing, and I do it all the time. So on the inside, I was peeing my pants. I don't think I did it on the outside. Um, and we, but I don't really remember too much from the. We got in the family car. We drove some distance to this Brazilian themed Japanese theme park that's like right on the ocean. It's called Washuzan Highlands. It was beautiful, and all I can remember was Mr. Ono, and he didn't speak a lot of English, but I remember in the car him telling us a story about how the year before, and he said this in kind of just a nonchalant way, that there had been a tourist who had gotten scared on the tower, and they had grabbed on to the employee who was at the top when the person jumped, and they'd pulled the employee, and they'd fallen 60 meters to a gruesome death. And I was just dying. This was horrible. But I just had to keep remembering that I had a crush on Cowrie. So I had to push through it. I was committed at this point. So I remember we got there, and I also remember that Cowrie was stone cold. Did not act scared at all, and that made this even worse. I felt emasculated, and it was terrible. So we got to the theme park, and I remember we walked up to this tower, and it was this big tall tower, and it was 60 meters tall, and it's 205 feet, and it was going back and forth and back and forth, and I'm looking up there, and I could see the clouds and the perfectly blue sky. You could see the bridges off in the water, and you could see the ocean. And we get up to the table at the bottom of the tower, and there's a group of people who are signing people in, and they're doing this in Japanese, and I don't speak Japanese. And somebody hands me a form, and it's got a dotted line, and they point to it, and I'm hearing a bunch of words, and I sign on the line. Somebody else hands me a belt, like a harness. It's canvas. It's got a loop on the front. It's got a loop on the back. I put that on. I see that Cowrie's doing that. So, and she's bungee jumping too, and she's excited about it. And so I've got my harness on, and Cowrie and it's time for us to start walking up this big tower that's going back and forth. Now, for Cowrie, this isn't a big deal, right? You walk up, and for me, once we're about 10 feet off the ground, I'm beside myself with my fear of heights and my fear of girls. It's all just conspiring against me at this point. So she's talking about how pretty the bridge is and the water, and I'm just thinking about how quickly I want to get off this tower. I don't care what it takes. I want off this tower. And so she's talking, we're walking, we're going up, we're going back and forth on these kind of rickety seeming stairs. And then after probably, I don't know, we get up about maybe halfway up the tower, we get to the end of the line. And if there's anything that I want less, it's to stop and enjoy this spot. So we're going back and forth on the tower, and time is just, the only way that I can handle this is by completely closing myself off to any senses and just staring at, I don't know, staring at one thing that's right in front of me. And I'm not appreciating any of this beautiful sights. I'm not appreciating the opportunity to talk to a girl for the first time in my life. We're going up there. We finally get up to the top of the tower. At this point, we have to decide who's going to jump first. Is it going to be Cowrie? Is it going to be me? And I figure I've been waiting this long. and I don't want her to see me pee my pants in front of her. Um, so Cowrie goes first. She goes off, and I'm just thinking about how I'm imminently in danger of dying. So I'm not really watching, and she goes up there. I hear some directions. It's all in Japanese. I see her out of the corner of my eye, attach the cord, jump, and then you hear applause down below. So at this point, I'm next in line, and, and now I realize that I think maybe for the first time I realized that I don't speak the language that they're giving directions in, and I walk up. The employees gesture for me to come over. They're giving me detailed instructions on what to do. It's in Japanese. I don't understand any of it, but I just keep nodding and I keep smiling. It's a trick that I learned in middle school. Um, and eventually the people are looking at me kind of strange. They say more stuff. I don't understand it, but I just nod, I smile. I just want to get off this tower as quickly as I possibly can. So I'm walking over to the place that's right next to where you jump from. It's right next to the tower, to the edge, and there's a kid who hands me a cable. They say some more stuff in Japanese. I take the cable, I hook it on my belt, right on the loop on the front. There's some sideways looks at me, and I'm thinking, is it because I'm a foreigner? I don't know what's going on. I just want to get off the tower. So I hear a few more words I don't understand, and then I finally hear 4 Japanese words that I understand. Ichi, ni, san, banzai. 1, 2, 3, jump. And I jump. Now, if I had done a number of things, if I'd realized that I was standing next to a Japanese high school student who is fully bilingual, I could have asked Kaori to tell me what was going on, to translate some of these instructions. If I'd realized that a lot of Japanese people speak English, I probably could have found someone who could have given me the instructions in English. If I knew anything about bungee jumping, I would have known that you don't hook the cable onto the front of your harness, you hook it onto the back. But I didn't know any of that. So I'm in the air, I just jumped off the tower, and the cable starts pulling at me, and I start spinning like a top, and I'm going around and around and around and around, and I see the bridges, and I see the people at the bottom, and I see the park employees that are dressed in Brazilian garb. And then I see the top of the tower again, and then I see the bridges, and I'm going around, around, around. My vision just goes black. And the cable is going in the air, and time just slows down, but I'm in the air, and I go down, and I go down, and I see and I'm getting close to the people, it feels close, to the people that are sitting in lawn chairs at the bottom on the ground. And I go up, and I get levitate up there, and I'm seeing clearly again. And then I start going down again, and I feel like I'm weightless for a little while, and I'm going up and down and up and down. And for the first time, I'm kind of taking in how beautiful this whole place is. And I'm like, I did this thing. And so I'm going up and I'm going down, I'm going up and I'm going down. And then the cable starts pulling me up, and I get up to the top of the tower, and I stand up on, I pull myself up. Somebody pulls me. I kind of unsteadily get on my feet, and I'm on the same tower that I was on before, but I'm just like so thrilled that I just did this thing. Like, I traveled to Japan. I jumped off a freaking bungee jumping tower, and I did it with a girl who wasn't my sister. And so I walked down the tower, and I realized that although I'm still afraid of heights, although I'm still afraid of girls, and although I'm still afraid of failure, that there's some things that are worth doing even though you're afraid of them.